Now, I've said before that the first three phases of the MCU, or fully embracing the shared universe idea like it did, beyond just having sequels, or even beyond having connected trilogies like Star Wars did, or other long-running series like, say, James Bond, that don't exactly have a larger narrative to follow, and instead having what in some regards are standalone films that anyone can watch and understand on their own and enjoy, no matter what you may or may not have seen before, but also being a series of films that are indeed connected to each other and then culminate in a major crossover event like in actual comic books. Bringing that idea to the big screen to a series of movies is easily and obviously one of the smartest decisions anyone has ever made, as well as being one of the greatest achievements in film history, which is hard to argue against when you look at the success of what it all amounted to or culminated with, how much that crossover event, that of course being Endgame as well as Infinity War, how much they made at the box office. You could certainly say the MCU took advantage of the idea of there being a canon, or that what happens in one story is not only relevant to another, but it is in the very same quote-unquote universe and helps build that universe out until it takes on a life of its own. It is the same world, the same characters, the same events, and they all impact each other, thus allowing you to immerse yourself in not only the story at hand, the one being presented to you in whatever film you might currently be watching, but allows you to immerse yourself into something much, much bigger, to believe, in a manner of speaking, in there being an even bigger story always going on, or other things always going on at the same time elsewhere. That even though you know otherwise, it makes it feel like it could be the same sort of alternate reality that they're all in, that you are somehow getting a glimpse of. And of course, one of the keys, maybe the key to making it all work, to selling the shared universe, is continuity. It's hard to buy into the bigger story when perhaps events or some significant detail from one movie contradicts another. And I say significant because, sure, I think we can all overlook small or minor details not being perfectly aligned. But for the most part, there should be consistency or continuity if you want people to buy into the shared universe. And people really do like buying into the shared universe idea. There is a reason why Endgame made so much money and why people keep going to MCU films, despite perhaps a decline in their quality. Or why a popular type of video here on YouTube are the ones from those who break it all down and show you all the small connections between the different stories, who lay it out for you, or perhaps give you complete histories of characters across multiple films or stories, or whatever else it might be. People really, really get vested into these shared universes, and like with any story, big or small, consistency or continuity is king. A story, when you really break it down to its simplest form or simplest definition, is little more than a series of events that are consistent with each other and then paint a larger picture of some kind. Furthermore, what oftentimes sells a new story to us or drives us to go see a film in the theater or to watch a show on a streaming service are the connections to something bigger, the fact that it's the next chapter of a larger story we've been following for maybe a decade or more. And yes, of course, the movie or show should absolutely be good in and of itself. You shouldn't absolutely have to watch it in order to keep up with the larger story, or it shouldn't be so focused on that larger story that it fails to be its own thing in any respect and ends up being just the next chapter. But yeah, oftentimes people or fans will give something new or different or otherwise pretty much unknown, perhaps a comic book character they've never heard of because they're not a mainstream character. They'll give them the benefit of the doubt and go watch it because of the shared universe, because they want to see more from this alternate reality. Again, they really want to get vested in the bigger picture and to buy into all of it for fun. Which is why it was a little strange, perhaps, to hear James Gunn, the guy who is essentially launching or relaunching the DC shared universe, say this recently in an interview.
I mean, does canon matter anymore anyway?
Well, one of the weird things to me
is it? And none of this is real. It may be alarming to people, but none of it is real. It's all just stories that we're telling about characters, and hopefully there's authenticity and truth to those stories.
because we care about those stories. The characters, the actors, the performers, the animators, they all care about these stories. But it's not real.
Right.
So what's canon can really be whatever you want to be canon. If you want to pretend that, Greedo and Batman go on, adventures together, you can pretend Greedo and Batman go on adventures together. That can be your canon. I know that is your
You just stole my fan fiction.
And look, like I was saying before, I do understand kind of where he's coming from here. You could certainly argue the important part of any movie or any story in general, shared universe or not, is that the audience connects with the characters and the story in the moment. Not that every little thing perfectly aligns with every other movie or story in the same universe. Yet at the same time, like I've been saying, what tends to sell these films is the shared universe, or the fact that you already know and love the character from elsewhere. That's oftentimes why you go see a movie in the first place. I always find it a bit odd or ironic when someone who is going to do a film based on the work of others, when they want to put a whole new spin on it, instead of just making their own brand new thing where you have absolute creative freedom. You don't have to do anything that the fans want because you don't yet have fans, which is of course kind of the ironic part of it all. That you want to take advantage of the name of all of the hard work of the original creator or anyone else who has shaped the character since, but you don't want to beholden yourself to it or the fans that love them. You don't want to be troubled by the person who actually made the character and did all the hard work of initially making the character relevant and beloved so that you can now make this thing and have an audience. And then, as was kind of the case here with James Gunn, you all but laugh at the idea of consistency or canon, when again it's the character being well established and beloved that is allowing you to do this movie and have the excitement for it ahead of time. Superman and or Batman or Spider-Man, pick your character. Them being a household name is the reason people will come to see your film, not because of anything you've actually created from the ground up. Also, no one is under the belief that any of this is real. No one thinks the MCU is real because there's been a bunch of movies that, for the most part, are all consistent with each other. No one has ever said, thank God for the Avengers stopping Thanos and getting half the population of Earth back, or half the population of the universe. Everyone fully understands these are completely fictional stories. Trying to say this isn't real as a defense of not beholding yourself to canon is a really terrible and disingenuous argument, and is done in such a condescending way here. People care about canon in large part because Hollywood, because of people like you, James Gunn, who made films in the MCU. You popularized or made the idea mainstream, and as I said, used the concept to build to a film like Infinity War and or Endgame, which are sold on the fact that it is canon or consistent with every other movie that came before it in the MCU. They work so damn well because of the journey we have seen all these characters go on already in the previous movies, because they are the exact same character from the previous movies. They are consistent. If Marvel had started with Infinity War and Endgame, if those films had launched the MCU, or if they would have dived right in with Avengers and skipped the other films in Phase 1 because canon doesn't matter, or, none of it's real, right? Well, those Avengers films would have likely been nowhere even close to as successful as they were, because they would have made no sense whatsoever to most people watching them because of how they built off what came before. That is the selling point. That is what people love about those movies. They are the culmination, a decade's worth of films, a decade's worth of adventure of these characters, all coming to fruition in a grand event scale movie. And without those previous ones, only die-hard comic fans who would have already known these characters, they would have been the only ones to have a chance at fully piecing the story together and to make it make sense. And though, like I said, I get it that you want to make each individual movie good in and of itself, that is a priority, and it should be. Don't get me wrong here. Each movie should be able to essentially stand on its own and be good and enjoyable, but it's not like it's the most impossible thing to do that and to keep it consistent with the rest of the canon, especially considering outside of the big culmination event style films, yeah, they should be a little more on the self-contained side. We're going to, or us fans should, give them a little leeway if, say, a member of the Avengers is having a problem, maybe the entire planet is at stake or whatever, and they decide to handle it on their own for some reason instead of calling in the rest of the Avengers. I'm not saying fans can't ever be a little particular or dig a little too deep to find things to complain about, but to essentially laugh at them for wanting to fully vest themselves in these universes that you're creating that are being sold on the idea of being a shared universes, to have to tell them it's not real when that's beyond obvious, that doesn't exactly make me want to check out what the new DCEU from James Gunn has in store for us. But anyway, I think that is going to be all I got for you this time. Now it is your turn to take to the comments below and tell me what you think about this one. Tell me how important canon and continuity is to you, and I know we have talked about this before, but I'm curious to know what you think about what James Gunn had to say about it. And so, whatever the case may be, leave a comment below and let's talk some DC, some Star Wars maybe. And until next time, thanks for watching.